Okay, so this is the bank transactions screen where you will be coding the bank transactions as they come through. One thing I always suggest is that you make sure you have all transactions selected. You can minimize down and just work on one bank account at a time if you want to. Most people just choose to keep it on all bank accounts, but just remember you can narrow that down um, if you need to, and always check the date range that you're working in. If you can't find a transaction, it's possibly because the date range has been changed the last time you were using the file, and it will remember today when you come in, it will remember the last date range you had it set to. So always check those. Um, as a workflow, you can, oh, I thought I'd unallocated all of those. Um, so looking at all transactions, you can sort by the date, you can sort by the description, you can sort by withdrawals or deposits. Some people like to do all of their deposits all at once. And then we're going to click in here on allocate me. So I know that my deposits are pretty much all going to be deposits, which sometimes we call sales. So whatever number it is that you want to allocate those to, you can type the number or you can type sales and then use your down arrow to select whichever one it is that you want to put that to. And then enter on the keyboard will select that. So let's say the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sales, I also want to code to sales 1. And I can use the plus on my keyboard as a way of speeding that up. So I'm just hitting the plus key. So that will copy the code that I've used in the line above. Okay, so there's all my deposits allocated to a code. Now you'll see here there's an X. If I've done it to sales bar and I didn't mean to, I meant to put it to sales 1, I can hit the X and that will unallocate it. And then I can put it back to sales 1. The next thing I will do is sort by description, and that puts everything that's quite similar all together. So what we have here is we have a variety of transactions to Spark for telephone. So I can again click in here and go telephone and enter, and that will code that. But what I want to do is create a rule so that I never have to code Spark New Zealand Mobile ever again. So on the very right hand side we're going to click the drop down arrow. We're going to click create rule. Now to keep things nice and tidy, I like to name the rule what I'm coding the transactions to, like telephone. And I'll take out the bill pay and I'm just going to make it say Spark New Zealand. And then down here I will select telephone from my accounts and guess it is S15 for GST. Now say for example I know within my business I also use Vodafone for telephone. Before I even save this rule, I'm going to add Vodafone here as well, so that if the bank transaction has the words Spark New Zealand Mobile or Vodafone, it will code that automatically to telephone. If you wanted to split it out and you wanted to have a dollar amount go to telephone, say your bill was the same every month, and you wanted the remaining to go to internet, which I don't have internet in here, so I'll just put it to telephone as well, just to show you. The remaining amount, whatever is over and above that, will be split and would go to internet. This is useful for if you had a percentage and it was your insurance. So say you have 25% which goes to insurance and the remaining 75% is going to go to drawings. That's a common split, but you can apply that to rules as well. This one, it's going to be 100% to telephone, mobile and Spark and Vodafone. So when I save that, what's going to happen back here in the screen, if I count to 10, count to 2, is that will automatically allocate all of those to telephone. So what I'm going to do now, working forward, is I'm going to go and change this so I'm only seeing unallocated transactions, and that will help me with the coding. So here I have BP Forest Hill, I have Caltex, I've got some bank transactions. So what I might do is make one rule for my fuel. So again, click the arrow on the right hand side, go create rule. Give it a name. Let's just have it as Caltex, because I might go to 5 different Caltexes in different suburbs. Z Petrol. I might go to BP Connect. I might go to BP To Go, I think it shows as. And Mobile. And this is going to go to motor vehicle expenses. And this one? Oh, BP. So the Caltex will apply and disappear. My BP Forest Hill, I need to tweak the rule. So what I like to do, if I need to edit the rule, you come up here to banking and manage rules. And if you hold down Control on your keyboard and you click manage rules with your mouse button, it'll open it as a separate window. And here I can edit my rule. Ah, that's right, because I did BP, so let's change it to BP FOR, because you'll notice they were both spelt differently, and then that will catch those that I missed. I would also do the same thing for my internet online banking and my monthly bank fees, so that they code as well. So here's an insurance one. So let's take this drop down arrow, and instead of creating a rule, I can also split it in here. So to do the percentage, let's do this as I was showing before, and make that 75% drawings. So I can split in there, and I can keep going. I can do as many splits as I want to do, and just by tabbing through it will create new lines for me as I tab through on the keyboard. If I've done a mistake, I can X the line out, and that will get rid of that. So this is just to allocate one transaction. It's not to create a rule for it. So I can click save there and do that. Now if we, because in here this has more than one bank account, if for example I had a bank transfer and it was going from one of my bank accounts to the other, the correct way to deal with that on a one-off basis is to use the transfer once I come in here on the right hand arrow. And if this was a bank transfer on the 28th of April for 50 cents, it's going to list all of the other bank transactions available that were for 50 cents. And then on the right hand side, you would just have the dates and a little radio button, a circle button, ready for you to click and select the one that matches the same date. Once you've found the other 50-cent transfer on the 28th of April, you would tick the circle and you would be able to click the save button. And what that's going to do is allocate both sides of that transaction, so one transaction in each bank account. If you're not sure what something is and you want to leave a note for your accountants to help you out with, you can come in here and say, "Hi David, how do I code this?" and save. And then when David pops in, he'll see that note and he'll be able to answer it and help you out with that. I'll make one more rule just to go over it again, just so that you can see that. So from the right hand side, click the arrow, create rule, changes. There it is. And there's no GST on bank charges, so that's correct. And that will allocate those. So I'm just going to go down here and do this so that I can get some allocated. Have I got, no, I haven't got staff expenses. Let's just say that was printing and stationery. I haven't got either. I'm missing a few codes, obviously. Okay, so let's just say, for example, that we've finished, just pretend because I haven't, but let's just say we've finished coding all of the bank transactions for March. So then we need to come in and do our bank reconciliation for the month of March. So let's say this cheque account is our only account. I'm going to come back here to the end of March. And I'm going to check my bank balance, and that's all correct. And then I would click save and I would complete reconciliation. Now it must be different bank accounts. There you go. Okay, so I've already done this one on the 31st of the 10th. So I would then go the 30th of November. There's no transactions, so then I can, if I want to, I can click through and do a couple of months at a time if I wanted to. But always what you've got to do is check that there's a 0 unreconciled in the middle here. So because you're on bank feeds, you can generally it will be correct, but it is a good practice to get into just to jump on your internet banking, check your bank balance on the last day of the month and make sure that this matches. And when I'm happy with that, I can go save and complete reconciliation. If there were any unreconciled, unallocated transactions, they would turn up here. So that's when you need to have a look into it and see why they're not reconciled and reconcile them correctly. And so that's where there's a manual transfer being entered. So this is something that any that's unreconciled would turn up here. So that would be a process for you to work through to make sure that your bank accounts are reconciled. David, did you want me to go through GST filing? Or is that something you do?
Yeah, just leave it at the moment.
Okay.
And if someone needs to know, I'll let them know how to do it.
While I'm still recording, is there anything else you want me to go over?
It's just when a client finishes, is there a button they push to just send me an email and say they're finished, or do they just email me?
There isn't. It's an external, so they can just email you and say that they are done. You will be able to notice from your dashboard that we discussed before. I can show you that if I stop recording. But basically, when they've finished recording and done their bank reconciliation check, yes, they would just email you outside of the program and let you know they were done.
Yeah, no, what you've done is really good. I think that's going to be very helpful for the clients.
Cool. I'll stop recording